The lips of righteous teaches many. Fools die for want of wisdom. The rich man's wealth is in the city. The poor man's wealth is in a holy place. Destruction of the soul is poverty. Destruction of the poor is vanity. We give thanks and praise to the Most High who rules and reigns over everything. We give thanks for wisdom, knowledge and understanding in all aspects of life. Not just finance, but all aspects of life. All things are related and creation is a package. Money, it touches us every day. God wants us to live an abundant life. God wants us to live in peace, love and unity. God wants us to be happy. He wants us to be free. Nature created by the second, and we are part of nature. Why do we suffer? I've learned that even in the abundance of water, the ignorance will still die of thirst. I've learned money doesn't make you happy, but money can help happy people make others happy. Money doesn't automatically make you sad, but money will make sad people do sad things. Money don't make you good, but money will have good people do good things. Likewise, money will have bad people do bad things. Money is like the icing on the wealthy cake. In order for you to eat the cake, you have to first buy the icing. Money is important. Sometimes I wonder why we separate God and spirituality from this world of money. It's important for you to understand the importance of creating generational wealth for the benefit of humanity. This world was not given to us by our ancestors. It was loaned to us by our children. When we give it back to them, we must make it a better place. Give it back to them plus interest. I was born in a very poor community, and what inspired me to write this book called The Wealthy State of Mind is the way I was raised and the things that I've experienced in my life. I realized that it's intelligence rule this world and ignorance carry the burden. I realized that without the financial information that is necessary, our money will always flow to those who benefit from our financial ignorance. So said Robert Kiyosaki. When I was growing up in a very poor community, my mom was very poor and I live in the country. We were so poor we traveled miles away just to fetch water so we could drink. We have to go to the fields to look wood so our mom could cook. We didn't have any toilet in the house, so our bathroom was like a few blocks away. We didn't have any kitchen in the house or inside bathroom. Our lifestyle was a little bit different in the country, but it was a blessing. I loved it because that's where I was raised. When I was 10 years old, I left my mom's house and started living with my father's family. These people, they were rich people. I have to be honest to the world, I didn't enjoy the rich life initially because the way people see others, we didn't feel that love and that unity and that encouragement and that peace and that warm environment like we feel among the people who we would call poor. So wealth in a sense is not material things. Wealth is the way you live. The first day I decided that I wanted to be rich, my granduncle, Uncle Laji, he just came back from Miami and he told me one Friday, he said, God, I want you to come and work with me for today. I want you to help me to put some envelopes together. And we were putting these envelopes together and we were putting these names of individuals and I was like, what did these people do? So we paid him and he said they didn't do anything. God has blessed me with what I have and I feel that my way of giving thanks to God is to give back to these people. He did that every Saturday, every Friday before his Sabbath. And I saw firsthand how giving makes him happy. The first time I decided I wanted to be a rich person was when I saw that giving is a part of being rich. If you don't have, you can't give. He taught me one thing. I really care for the poor. I really wanted to help the poor. The old man, he taught me one thing. He said, God, if you really want to help the poor, you have to first get rich. And he said, however, getting rich is important for you to learn about money. Money is a language in itself. If you don't learn the money language, you will never be successful. And what confuses a lot of people is how they use the money language. For example, so much people confuses assets and liability. I was doing a seminar and I asked the question, what's your number one asset? And most people, they started naming their assets. Their home, their cars, their this real estate, that real estate, and so forth. And while they're not wrong, when I asked the second question, do you have a mortgage on your house? And they said yes. I said, okay, great. What's a mortgage? Is it an asset or is it a liability? And they said the mortgage is a liability. And I said, great. You see, while your home is an asset, the home is an asset on the bank's balance sheet. It's not an asset on your balance sheet. So you're getting the language wrong. So an asset is simple. An asset is something that put money in your pocket. A liability is something that take it out. So if you can get the language correctly in this world of money, then it will be very important. Now, growing up as a child in the country and just living with my father's family, people would always approach me and tell me how smart I was. And people thought that I could become anything I wanted, and they always encouraged me to become a doctor. Ego came into play because the greatest way to learn anything is by repetition. So I decided that I wanted to become a doctor, just like most people think that becoming a doctor would be the greatest accomplishment. It just so happened I'm having a conversation with a Jewish elder, and he asked me a very interesting question. He said, God, what do you want to become when you grow up? And I said, I want to become a doctor. He said, why do you want to become a doctor? I said, because doctors tell people what to eat, doctors tell people what to drink, doctors tell people when they're sick, doctors tell people when they die. Doctors have power. Then he asked me, where does doctors work? And I said, in the hospital. Then he asked me, who owns the hospital? And I couldn't answer. So I went back to the people who told me that I should become a doctor, and I asked them, where does doctors work? They said the same thing that I thought, in the hospital. Then I said, who owns the hospital? They didn't know. So when I went back to this elder, because now I realized that there are some missing information. There is some missing link between being a child to becoming the most successful person in the world. And he explained to me that nothing is wrong with becoming a doctor, but nothing is wrong with owning the hospital that the doctors work either. While it is a great accomplishment to become a doctor, it would be a greater accomplishment if you were to employ doctors. So, in this world of finance, in this world of buying and selling, there are 4 types of individuals. The industry is broken down in 4 types of individuals. You have employees, you have self-employers, you have business owners, and then you have investors. The employee is the individual that most of the world population don't want to be like. While nothing is wrong with being an employee, I always say that in the Bible say work. It didn't say get a job. Most people learn that and they decide, I don't want to be an employee, because you work 4, 5, 6 months of the year just to pay taxes, and they have to take the taxes out before you get money. You have a boss, you have somebody you have to report to, you gotta reach to work at certain times, you gotta carry yourself a certain type of way, and you're just not in the position to make a difference. People want to be free and happy, so they came up with the idea, I want to be an entrepreneur. Now, an entrepreneur could be a self-employed. Now, people for some reason, they stop there and they believe this is the greatest accomplishment that we can ever have. Being a doctor, an attorney, an accountant, having our own business. But just like an employee, a self-employer are still trading time for money. That will never make you wealthy, and that will never help you to create generational wealth. think about it like this. If your child have no desire to do what you're doing for a living, and if what you're doing and making money depends on your time to do it, when you transition and become an ancestor, how are you going to transfer that legacy to your children? Because now they're going to have to do exactly what you're doing. So now you will understand that an entrepreneur have a lot more to do than just being self-employed. It's just like you decide that riding a bike is the best means of transportation. And it may be, if you compare it to walking. But now if you're talking about driving a car, flying an airplane, using a jet, using a train, and all these things, then you know it's kind of different. Now, a business owner on the other hand is a different level. A business owner is an individual who owns a corporation, have an operation, have employees working for him. Now, he have people doing the work for him. In most cases, a business owner still involved in the operation or the function of the business. That individual is not totally taking him or herself away from the day-to-day operation, and if they do, they still have to micromanage to a certain degree. An investor, on the other hand, is kind of different. An investor is an individual who doesn't have to get involved in the day-to-day operation. Neither do they have to micromanage. But it's an individual like your Warren Buffett, your Donald Trumps. That's an individual who comes in and look at your business, look at your concept and say, hey, I like this concept and I will invest in this concept. And you give me residual, passive income. No, that person didn't only decide to invest in your business, but also they're not sharing into the liabilities and the responsibilities of having a business, of operating a business. And it also allows you, by doing this, to separate your assets from your liabilities. When you look at the world richest people, you don't get to see the Rothschilds, you don't get to see the Rockefellers, because what happened is that these individuals, they don't have to own, but they control. When I was 14 years old, I was in Miami, Florida. My father was a real estate broker. He had two clients that passed away simultaneously. One of them was an African American, the other was a Jewish elder. Both me and my father, we went to both family gatherings just to speak to the family members of the deceased. When we went to the African American household, we were speaking to the eldest son of the family. And he started to explain to us how devastated the whole entire situation was. He told us not only did they lose their father, but they lost everything he worked for. Their real estate, their businesses, their stocks, their bonds, their mutual fund. They had creditors. A lot of the estate went through probate. Because they didn't have money to pay the taxes, they had to sell a lot of their properties for less than fair market value. One thing I learned in that conversation, that is not no difference among the African Americans than it is among the black people or people of African descent in the Caribbean. At that point I came to the conclusion that we might be on a different plane, but it's the same pilot. It was a very interesting conversation. I've learned a whole lot. However, when we went to the Jewish family, we started talking to the eldest son of the Jewish family, and he was explaining to my father how great of a father he had. And he was talking about all the businesses and the real estates and the money and everything that his father left for them. But I noticed that the language was different. Now, this individual, he wasn't speaking about probate. He never made mention of creditors. He never made mention of estate tax or gift tax, and the language was just different. And I stand there and listening to the conversation as a child, because my background forces me to seek information, especially financial information, because I really wanted it so I can help the people. But based on the custom in Jamaica, when two adults having a conversation, children are not allowed to indulge in adults' conversation. So I kept my cool and I stand there and I listen. As God would have it, my father asked if he could use the restroom, and that was when I felt I had the opportunity to ask this man some questions. When my father went to the restroom, I asked him, "Sir, may I ask you a question, please?" He said, "Sure." Then I replied, "What is it that your father knows that most people don't know?" He said, "What do you mean by that?" Then I started out by telling him our story. I said, whenever time an individual dies in our community, we have to pay taxes. In most cases, our estate have to go through probate. Creditors started coming from all angles, and sometimes we have to sell our property for less than fair market value. So how is it that you and your family didn't have to pay taxes on the things that your father owned? He turned to me, he said, "Son, my father didn't own anything." I was like, "What?" No. He said, while his father was alive, he transferred ownership of everything that you would think he owned. His real estate, his businesses, his money, into a legal entity. And because he wasn't the legal owner, even though he died, his estate continues. And because there was no legal transfer, the beneficiaries did not have to pay taxes on their father's estate. They didn't have any creditor, because even if their father had an individual creditor, he could not liquidate the estate since his father wasn't the title owner. And I was more curious about the money. So I asked him, I said, "What about the money that is in the bank?" Then he asked me, he said, "Son, do you know what happened to the money in the bank between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning?" I told him that it was sleeping. As a child, I thought it was sleeping. He laughed. He thought I was a funny child. He said, "Son, let me explain something to you. While you sleeping, your money is trading. By the time you wake, the bank already made more than 10 times the amount of money you put there. Because while you're sleeping, China is open, Africa is open, India is open, so the bank trade your money. By the time you wake in the morning, they might turn around and give you 2% interest if they're generous. Not only do they do that, but now they don't protect your money. If a person tries to sue you, your money is not protected from creditors and lawsuits. Then if the bank go out of business, your money is only FDIC insured up to a certain amount. Then, if they do give you an interest, they send you a 1099 statement at the end of the year. So you don't have to claim the money on your taxes. So the money becomes part of public record. Then you have to pay tax on that interest. He said my father didn't want that, so he created what is called a private equity bank. This bank allows you to earn interest on your money without taxation. It allows you to use the money without taxation. And when you pass away, the money is transferred to the next generation without taxation. Plus, it's protected from creditors and lawsuits. It's probate proof. And he said something that blows my mind. He said, and in most cases, if structured properly, it's bankruptcy proof. So I asked him the question. I said, "Sir," I had a piece of paper. I wrote it down. I said, "Are you saying that if I have $1 million here and a person tried to sue me, I could go for a bankruptcy and still have $1 million?" He touched me in the top of my head. He said, "Son, you get that right." That blows my mind. So there and then, as a child, I learned the difference between owning versus control. You don't need to own to control. If you own, people can take it away from you. But you can control it and don't have to own it. By you controlling it and don't own it, no one can take it away from you. So money in itself is a language. Money, unfortunately, was never taught in school. If money was taught in school, teachers would be the first set of wealthy people. We learned a lot of things in school, but money wasn't one of them. Money was taught in home, and most of us, we learn money from our parents, and our parents learn it from their parents. And of course, you know what would happen to some family whose parents did not learn a lot about money. We learned that true education does not confine itself within the four walls of any classroom. Education is very important. I am an advocate of education. But long before there was education, there was inspiration. It is out of inspiration came education. That's why we thank God for vision, for leadership. We thank God for wisdom, for knowledge, and for understanding in all aspects of life. This book, The Wealthy State of Mind, I wrote this book teaching finance from a spiritual and biblical point of view. Fundamental principles, that's what we teach. And the Most High gives the inspiration. The Most High blessed me with a mind developed over the years for me to share this information. And I'm excited about going out there, reaching people, sharing this information to the world. God and nature want us to be happy. God and nature want us to be free. There are more substance of wealth than there are substance of poverty. Believe it or not. There are more good people in the world than there are evil people. Poverty is a myth. Wealth is the reality. The reality is what it is. Most of the time in life, we accept things not because it's reality. We accept by agreement. Everything you accept in life is by agreement. Most cases it's not because it's reality. If a person tells you that you're poor and you accept that by agreement, you're poor. If you say you're wealthy and you accept that by agreement with the universe, you're wealthy. You were born wealthy. You possess everything that it takes for you to be wealthy. Everything in this world was once in the mind of a person. It's the development of a mind becomes the manifestation of reality. So use your mind, use your thought, use the God that is inside of you. Use what you possess and turn it into reality. Don't let nobody tell you that you cannot do it. And do not let anybody put any spell on you. Do not come into an agreement with anyone. Sometimes in life, you may be different, but that's good. Believe it or not, the same people that are telling you today that you're not going to make it because you're different is going to be the same people that will one day congratulate you because you're unique. I repeat, the same people that are telling you today that you're not going to make it because you're too different, they're going to be the same people who will one day congratulate you because you are unique. Never be fooled by appearance. Appearances are sometimes deceiving. Many will see, yet still fool. When you see an orange yellow, that don't make it right. Sometimes it takes the third eye just to see the truth. There was this female by the name of Tanisha. Tanisha could sing very well. When Tanisha sings, you think it's Whitney. And every day Tanisha would sit down in her house, she would be in the shower, and she would sing so loud, and when she sing, you could feel it. And as she sing, she could feel it to her heart. But one day Tanisha's mother went to work and she had a headache, and Tanisha's mother came home and and she was lying in the bed, and Tanisha was in the shower and she was singing, and as Tanisha was singing and Tanisha was feeling, and she sing louder, and it just so happened that every time she sing, her mother headache getting worse, and while Tanisha was there singing and the mother headache getting worse, and finally the mother came out and she said, Tanisha, stop the singing, you have a horrible voice. And Tanisha accepted that with an agreement that she had a horrible voice. And from that day, every day Tanisha tried to sing. She could hear her mother saying, Tanisha, stop the singing, you have a horrible voice. I'm saying this to say that people should not be able to tell you who you are. People should not be able to tell you the right inside of you. People should not be able to tell you the wrong inside of you. God created you, Lord of His creation, and gave you ownership and possession of this world. There is no way you should let anyone tell you that you cannot do it. You can do it. You can do it. There was a chicken, and this chicken, she was depressed. She was oppressed. She felt like everything in the world was going against her. And one day this chicken sat down and she was stressed and she wondered, and she looked everywhere externally to find happiness, and she looked left, she looked right, she looked forward, she looked backward, she looked down, she looked up. And as she turned her heads to the heavenly sky, she saw a flock of birds, and they fly and they were happy and they were free. And the chicken automatically say, why that couldn't be me? You know, sometimes in life as human beings, when we see others are successful, when we see others are being progressive in life, we could use that as an opportunity to say it is possible to fly. It is possible to be successful, but we resort to saying, why that couldn't be me? And the chicken started coming to some strange conclusion. I know why they fly. They fly because they have feet, and they fly because they have feathers, and they fly because they have eyes, and they fly because they have wings. Just like us, sometimes in life when we see others are doing what they're supposed to do, we came to these conclusions in life. They are successful because we put our faith in because. And as this chicken came to this conclusion, there was a voice that keeps saying, look at me. And she keep looking externally, and she keep looking everywhere, and the voice keeps saying, look at me. And as she bowed her head to look at herself and started examining herself, she started seeing the same things that she could identify in these birds. First, she identified that she could see, so she have eyes, and then she noticed I have feet, and I have feathers, and I have wings. Just like us, there is a bird inside of us. I'm not here to teach you how to fly, but I'm here to tell you that you can fly. Just like Christ, He taught us in the book of Matthew chapter 5, He said, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify the Father which is in heaven. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. It is that light that was created in the beginning, by which all things were created. It is not the sun that shines. It is the light that makes the sun shine. It is not the moon that shines, but it's the light that makes that moon shine. As beautiful as the stars are in the Milky Way, you will learn that it is not the star that shines, but it is the light that makes the stars shine. The same light in that universe is sufficient for every stars in the heavens. It's sufficient for the sun to have its own space and the moon to have her own space. That same light is inside of us. Therefore, we do not have to be competitive in this world. We do not have to compete against another, because no man can take what is yours. We all possess a unique and distinguished light inside of us. The same light is inside of everything, but we are bits and pieces of the same whole. We are spiritual beings on a physical journey. If we can understand that, we can move mountain. Just like Christ thought. We could tell the mountain, mountain, remove, get out of my way. Man, we possess so much. We have to just get back to that realms of life, that spiritual connection with God and the universe, and find what's inside of you, reveal it, manifest it into this world. When I was a child, I asked my mother, how do I know what's right from what's wrong? If no one ever taught me what's right from wrong. She turned to me, she said, son, if I should take you to the mountain peak, and I should just leave you there, would you jump? And I said, no, I wouldn't jump. She said, who told you not to jump? I said, I don't know. She said, there is a voice inside of you that speaks. That's the voice you should always listen to. That voice will never lead you astray. God and nature will never lead you to no darker path than you have tried. God will give you no heavier burden than you know that you can bear. Righteousness is cool to be righteous. It's cool to show love. It's cool to show unity. It's cool to be peaceful. In this world of commerce and this world of economy, people teaches that this crab in a barrel mentality, because a lot of us, we learn wealth and finance and wealth creation from a competitive mindset. Therefore, we don't find it necessary to work together. Sometimes we have a community of people that we could do so much, just work together. If you sit down and observe nature in its fullest form, look at the geese, for example. Geese fly in a V formation because by the flap of each goose wing, it gives a certain adrenaline for the next flying goose to get that strength to go forward. Goose sometimes rotate formation, rotate their position. The one at the peak as the leader rotate and fall behind, and another will go up front and lead. Goose will fall from the pack when one will get tired. 2 or 3 will fall with them, will stay there, help them, nurse them, nourish them till they recover, and they would again fly and join that flock, or they would join another flock passing by. If we could be like geese, if we could learn the principles of geese and the principles of ants and a lot of the things in creation, we could be, as human beings, as a community of people, we could be far better rather than we are today. You will learn that unity is strength. You will learn that you could do a lot more together than fighting against each other. Never think negative for anyone, even your worst enemy. Nature don't understand whether you're thinking about it for yourself or for others. Life that creates you is positive. The life that creates you is love. The life that creates you is unity. To think otherwise is a fighting against the life that is inside of you. Never hate, never envy, never grudge. Nature creates sufficient for you, for me, and for every living being. Nature creates by the second. If any civilization believe that they can demolish wealth, they gotta be thinking again. Wealth can never end. Yes, it may shift its ownership. She may shift who controls it, but wealth is always there. The greatest commodity in this world is human being. That's the greatest commodity you could ever find. Trust me, if you bring gold, diamond, silver, oil, and all the commodities of this world, and human beings have no value, if human beings find no value in anything you bring, you would realize it can never be a commodity. You as human being, you discover all commodities. You can create wealth. Just be creative. Just find what's inside of you. Just do what you can do best. Master that. God created every human being as a genius. Every living creature was created as geniuses. But if you hold a fish accountable for climbing a tree, that fish will live the rest of his life believing that he is stupid. Focus on God and nature. Focus on yourself. Focus on what you possess. Always remember that there is a power inside of you. Though we want to build communities, though we want to build country, though we want to make this world a better place, it starts with you. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Take for example when you go to the Olympic. When you reach the track, let's use Usain Bolt as an example, one of the fastest men in the world. I can imagine Usain Bolt running for Jamaica, representing the black, green and gold and the red, green and gold and the 50 African states and the whole entire Caribbean, and he feels so good and he walks on the pitch, and as he about to run this race, they said something very interesting to him. And your mark. Before you run this race, you have to be on your mark. And the track and the race track, there are 4 lines. There are 4 lines that made us a race track. The left, the right, your mark, and the finish line. If you go too far to the left, you're in somebody else's lane. If you go too far to the right, you're in somebody else's lane. Either side you go to, you're going to be disqualified. Your focus should be on your mark, on the finish line. Run your race. Don't focus on what others have to say. Focus on the finish line. Whatever you focus on the most will be your reality. With God's dearest blessing, I leave you for a while. One love. One love.